This episode of the Slash Filmcast is brought to you by Harry's Shaving Kits. Please visit harrys.com and use promo code FILMCAST for $5 off your first purchase. That's harrys.com, HARRYS.com, and promo code FILMCAST, all one word, for $5 off your first purchase. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. My name is David Chen, and with me are
Devindra Hardwar,
Jeff Kanata,
and joining us today, he's a staff writer at SlashFilm.com, Jermaine Lucier. Welcome back to the Slash Filmcast. Jermaine, how are you doing today, sir?
I am very good, Dave. Thanks for having me back. And I just want to let everybody know, I know it's been a couple months I've been back, but Dave has been trying, so I've been getting the hundreds of emails and tweets. But I'm back now, so it's good to go.
So many thousands of people saying, where's Jermaine? Where's Jermaine? Like 99% of the emails every week are, where is Jermaine?
I know. So I just want to clear the air real early.
Right. People were thinking that that there was some beef between us, which there wasn't. But now you're back on the air. You know, we tried to get you on. You're really busy. You have a full dance card, Jermaine.
But you guys picked a good week to get me back, and I'm excited to talk about all this stuff we got going on today.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning into the Slash Filmcast for the first time, find more of our episodes at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Today we're going to be discussing what we've been watching, move on into a dissection of the week's film news, and then... Oh, actually, no, we're not going to do film news this week. All we're going to do is hear from Jermaine about Sundance. And then we're going to conclude with an in-depth review. This week, we'll be reviewing Paul Thomas Anderson's newest film, Inherent Vice. Jermaine, you're just back from Sundance, right?
Yeah, today is Monday. We're recording this. We got back Thursday, so I've been back a couple of days. I think I'm finally recovered.
Did you get sick, as people usually do?
No, knock on wood right here. I've not gotten sick yet, but... You know, anything's possible any day now. It can linger.
All right. Well, glad to have you on in a not sick mode. I will say I am still suffering from a cough that won't go away. I've heard this has been going around. People get sick and they have this cough that won't go away. So if you hear me coughing in the background, that's why. Apologies in advance for that. I try to turn away from the microphone. I did take a dose of Mucinex this morning, though. You guys used that before? It was pretty useful.
It's a thing, yeah.
Yeah, it like breaks up your.
Is that the one with the snot creatures?
TJ Miller did the ad, right? This portion of Slash Filmcast brought to you by Mucinex.
Yeah.
Mucinex.
It is, but you know what? Before we had Mucinex, guys, it was pretty horrible. It only came out like a couple of years ago.
It was like think of like the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, where bloodletting and leeches were your only recourse for medical treatment. I
can barely remember the pre-Mucinex era.
It's difficult to remember, Jeff. That's
It was tough.
All right. Well, anyway. It breaks up your phlegm and stuff, makes it easy to cough out. So
I like how with these later episodes we're basically dealing with old man problems.
Yeah.
Like last year it was hairlines. This week it's Mucinex.
Well, speaking of hairlines, we got this amazing email from Susan from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Have you guys heard about the kids these days?
Susan from St. Paul, Minnesota writes in response to our discussion of Jude Law's hairline on last week's episode of Slash Filmcast, I saluted Jude Law for embracing his receding hairline. Jeff Kanata lambasted me for saluting Jude Law's embracing.
Think that's how it went down exactly, but
I think that's a pretty accurate description. Anyway, Susan writes in, here's my take in Dave's defense on the Jude Law hair comment, which I totally understood when he said it. This is Jude Law we're talking about. Bruce Willis, Nick Cage, and whoever else you mentioned.
I wish that was the sum total of her argument.
That's true.
Jude Law. All right.
Come on.
I listen every week. Bye.
Bruce Willis, Nick Cage, and whoever else you mentioned are men and they are actors and they are movie stars, yes. But believe me, as a woman, they are in no category close to the gorgeousness that was and is Jude Law. I mean, really. Look at him in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Movie critics were wetting their pants over how beautiful he was in that film. Male movie critics. For a man known early on mostly for his looks to age and lose his hair, then to bravely face new roles that take him into a new direction of character actor or lead actor playing an everyman is brave. It helps that Jude Law has the talent, too. Maybe being a woman and seeing how tough it is for women who are disproportionately expected to be beautiful to work in film, to age and fight what naturally happens, I see Jude Law's situations through those eyes. Watch actresses in Jude Law's age range, Julia Roberts, Nicole Kidman, Cameron Diaz. Watch how fiercely they work to stay young-looking or risk public ridicule or the loss of work. At least actresses like Kira Sedgwick, who talk openly about having work done because it's what's needed to stay competitive. I'm sorry, I should just say at least actresses like Kira Sedgwick talk openly about having work done because it's what's needed to stay competitive. Actresses like Kathy Bates age less noticeably because we value them for something other than their looks. Jude Law isn't Bruce Willis or Nick Cage. He had way more to risk by embracing his shrinking hairline, and indeed, he had options like hair plugs and wigs. He's made choices to play characters who are balding, e.g. Dom Hemingway, and I'd bet allowed characters he has hired to play be bald, even if the part didn't demand it. I'm glad he did. My respect for him as an actor has actually doubled in these later years, so I'm on your side, Dave, on this one. So thank you, Susan, for that email. By the way, the film in question is Black Sea, for those who have no idea why we're talking about Jude Law. The movie's out in limited release right now, and it was fairly enjoyable, as well as it was as enjoyable as Jude Law's hairline was in that film.
I guess the big comparison or the parallel here would be to bring up John Travolta, right? Here's a guy who is known for his looks and refuses to sort of admit that his hair isn't there anymore, or at least is playing this weird game with the public, right?
Well, I thought
on a number of levels. Let's be honest.
yeah, that's true.
Are you saying that Battlefield Earth hair was fake?
I'm saying all the hair he's worn in the last 30 years is fake.
I thought the examples I gave last time were also good, which is to say Nick Cage and Johnny Depp have also been playing games of the public, as it were. So, So what say you now, Jeff? Okay. Well, let me just ask you this, Jeff. Did that email in any way sway you towards my opinion?
I'm not even clear on what your opinion is. Your opinion is thumbs up to Jude Law. I agree. Thumbs up to Jude Law.
Thumbs up to a pretty guy embracing his balding head.
Yeah,
I was merely saying that it was a little condescending to reduce it to that, but
reduce it meaning
this is
what?
Jude Law we're talking about, Jeff.
I forgot Jude Law.
Jude Law. Although I mean,
and I also
love
think it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I love the letter brings up talented Mr. Ripley because he is a gorgeous specimen.
He is so beautiful in that movie. Yes.
Yeah. Just want to say
I think it belittles Bruce Willis and Nick Cage to say. I mean, maybe this particular feedback was from a different era, or from someone that grew up in a different era. But I think that Moonlighting and the first Die Hard, I think Bruce Willis was a sex symbol for sure.
Wow.
And so, I guess Nick Cage in the Moonlighting, or not Moonlighting, Moonstruck days, perhaps would fall into that category. Maybe not.
Right. I think what this discussion has revealed is you and I have very different tastes in men, Jeff.
Listen. For me, it's Timothy Olyphant or bust. That's all I care about.
All right.
That man is a god.
That's a legitimate point. All right. What else? So we got a lot of commentary on our discussion of American Sniper. And I wanted to read a couple of comments and emails about it. So Tyler writes in, hi guys, I'm currently working in Afghanistan, listen to your podcast to pass the time. I believe you guys completely missed the point of American Sniper connecting 9/11 with a soldier fighting in Iraq. I'm a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and 9/11 was one of the reasons I joined the military. In fact, I joined prior to the start of the war in Iraq, but that is the only theater I served in as a soldier. It seems to me that Eastwood used 9/11 to show what drives certain people to serve their country, and I would like to point out that soldiers don't get to pick which war they fight in. 9/11's connection to Iraq or lack thereof is not the point. Whether you think the Iraq War was just or unjust should not diminish the impact that 9/11 had on a generation of Americans and their willingness to protect the U.S. 9/11 obviously had an impact on Chris Kyle, and its portrayal in the film allows the viewer to understand his initial motivation. So a few thoughts on this comment or this email and emails like it. Firstly, thank you, Tyler, for writing in, and thank you for your service. But what he's referring to is our discussion last week of American Sniper, in which we referred to the scene in American Sniper where Chris Kyle is watching the TV. Like the sequence of events we see in the film is that he's watching TV, he sees the towers go down, and then boop, he's off to Iraq to serve in the war. I think that
He was already enlisted at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing we did not make clear enough that is my bad is we did not point out that at that point in the film he is already enlisted in the military.
And they actually use that trick twice in the movie because he sees the embassy bombings, and then he's like, "Oh, well, maybe I should do something." And then he goes and enlists.
Right, that's true. So he sees the embassy bombing, and then he enlists. And then while he's enlisted, he sees 9/11 go down on TV, and then he's shipped off to Iraq. So I regret that we were not as precise as we could have been in voicing our objection to that scene and in pointing out the fact that he was already enlisted. We should have done that, and so thank you for pointing that out. That being said, the scene where he is watching the news and sees the attack and then goes off to enlist, I believe that is a fabrication from the film. Like, he had always, according to the autobiography, he had always intended to go into the military. And I would argue that even though it wasn't as though, he sees 9/11 and then that's what inspires him to go to war, I would argue that the way it's depicted in film still allows the viewer to draw that connection. Still allows the viewer to kind of make this connection that, 9/11 happened, and then he's in Iraq, and he's this hero that goes and does all these good deeds there, and therefore, like, that is the narrative arc of America's foreign policy post 9/11.
I said this last week, though, Dave. Like, my issue there is that was the reality for people living through the situation, right? They didn't know exactly that, if pretty much everyone was supporting the Iraq War at one point. We were fed bad information, and people didn't know what exactly was wrong or not. And if you're a soldier, you just have to go where they send you. So I think the thrust of the narrative is 9/11 happens and he's back in Iraq. I don't think the movie necessarily makes that judgment that, there's a direct connection there. It's just that's where America ended up going, and it didn't make the judgment of saying, oh, by the way, we were here for the wrong reason.
Right. I guess that what you just said, that last bit, is, I think, part of the reason some people take issue with the film. Mm-hmm. Is that it's only kind of telling you part of the story, that we went to Iraq for spurious reasons, that there were no WMD, and I think part of the reason why that is objection. So Jeff Kanata, you and I had an email interaction with a colleague of ours who shall remain nameless about this topic, where they said, what is the problem with telling the story in that way? What is the problem with the way what Devindra just said, which is to say that what the movie depicted is not per se wrong. We did think that there were WMD. People were sent off to war because of 9/11. It's not as though the movie is lying. It's not directly presenting falsehoods, other than the specific details of Chris Kyle's life. But I mean, it's not saying, like, the movie is not actively saying there were WMD in Iraq or anything like that. Right?
It didn't justify it.
It's more than that. I think the perspective from the person that we were interacting with was that the movie is told from the main character's perspective, and what is the problem with showing his perspective, even if it was in error, even if he was under a false assumption.
Right. Not all movies need to be about all things, right? Like in Schindler's List, Schindler's List is primarily about Oskar Schindler and many of the Jews that he saved. But there are all sorts of other people that were affected by the Holocaust that movie doesn't cover. Does that mean we should fault Schindler's List for presenting an incomplete picture of that era and time? Not all movies need to be about all things. I can totally relate with that point of view. But I think one of the problems I have is that this movie wanders into a political climate where a substantial portion of the U.S. population does believe that there's a direct link between 9/11 and Iraq, does believe that there were WMD in Iraq. And when you tell an incomplete story like that, it lends itself to being misinterpreted in the highly polarized political climate that we're in. And knowing what we know about Clint Eastwood's politics, that further makes the picture more complex. So I guess
I would go farther than that. I would say it's even more problematic for me because the movie is attempting to hold up its lead character as as an ideal.
Right.
And his actions, time and time again, the central theme of the film is reinforced as being three types of people in this world, right? The sheeps, the wolves, and the sheepdog. And our main character is the sheepdog, and he's there to protect us. And it is shown as being a very idealistic, a very heroic, and a very noble endeavor. And the fact that the truth is that him being in Iraq is arguably not being the sheepdog for the act of 9/11. Like, he's not protecting anybody from the people that did anything in 9/11. In fact, there's a case to be made that we are less safe for having invaded Iraq after 9/11, right? I don't want to venture into that debate, but I'm saying that the fact that the film's position is one that is very understandable. You can ascertain its position from watching the film, and then that position in itself is questionable at best. I think that's problematic for me.
I mean, I don't want to prolong this too much, but there is one of Kyle's superiors in the film who starts questioning why they're there. And there's a very pragmatic response. I think it's from Kyle or from somebody else who's like, well, we're here. You know, we have this mess and we just have to fix it.
Right.
And I think it kind of had that reaction to it as well. Like, maybe the information wasn't right. Maybe they're there for the wrong reason, but they're still there. They got to fix it. And there's a scene too with his brother who's basically like, I hate this place. And it doesn't seem like the movie is all rah, you know, yay, we're in Iraq. I didn't think so, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
It's rah for that individual. It's turning
that's
this guy
the problem.
into the hero, and that's a problem.
That's the much bigger problem in the movie, because it doesn't show us his faults, his many issues. I was listening to Bradley Cooper on Fresh Air today, actually, and he was talking about how the pitch of this movie as like a Western, you know, of Chris Kyle going in there, going to the town, cleaning it up, and then there's this other sniper on the other end, and they have this big finale at the end. He was in love with that idea for the movie, and I think that's the bigger problem, rather than the 9/11 interpretation.
Yeah.
Fair point. And I think Jeff's view on the film is a little bit more intense than mine. You know, I kind of sympathize with this idea that a film should not be expected to depict that if someone wants to show the point of view of one character, no matter how incomplete or inaccurate that point of view is, that should be okay theoretically. That being said, the environment in which the film is released, it makes it more tricky. It just makes it more problematic to do it that way.
We had a very similar argument with Zero Dark 30 and the whole torture thing too. So it feels like the same thing.
Well, anyway, so I do want to say a big thank you to all the people that commented on that podcast episode who were quite civil overall. I mean, there are people that disagreed with us and people who, you know, didn't like what we had to say about the film, but there were very few people that just were outright attacking us, as has been happening on the internet.
For less important or, bigger films, I guess.
It was no Interstellar, let's be honest.
Yeah, this is no Interstellar. So anyway, it was a very fascinating conversation, and if you want to see it, go to slashfilm.com, click on /filmcast. You can see all of our episodes and specifically our American Sniper review. Let's move on, guys, and get into what we've been watching this week. So, what have I been watching? All right, so I watched this movie called Everly.
Hello?
Everly.
Thank
You betrayed me. My men are already there. You will die in that room tonight, Everly. What are you going to do?
I know I'm gonna die tonight. Mom? You need to see me so I can give you enough money for you to disappear tonight.
We are having company.
Which is the newest film by director Joe Lynch. And the reason I watched this movie, let's read the plot summary here. An action thriller centered on a woman who faces down assassins sent by her ex, a mob boss, while holed up in her apartment. And this stars Salma Hayek as the main character, Everly. And the whole appeal of this movie is you get to watch Salma Hayek kick ass and kill a ton of guys.
Sure. Okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, that's the premise, and it's set primarily in one location. So
it's like that one scene from John Wick, but the whole movie.
The whole movie, and also in one location. And so I was like, okay, that's an interesting premise enough for me to check out. And the first hour. By the way, Joe Lynch is the director of films such as Knights of Badassdom. Is
sort of the director of Knights of Badassdom.
Yeah,
okay, that's an interesting.
I heard that
story.
was ripped up.
Well, anyway, so I thought that this movie was incredibly silly. You know how like you start to realize how films like John Wick get away with some of the ridiculousness. Something that helps with films like John Wick, I know it sounds silly for me to say, but scene changes. I know that sounds silly, but it helps because when you are in John Wick and you go to a hotel that is only for assassins, and then okay, John Wick he checks into this hotel and you learn about these archaic rules, and then he's off to another place. You don't really have time to think about how implausible that situation would be, like what are the logistics of a hotel like that?
You're saying distract me more
exactly.
with your fancy camera angle changes.
That's right. And because Everly takes place only in one location, it's really easy to think of how ridiculous this movie is. And it's not realistic on any level, right? And that can be okay. It can be a lot of B-movie fun. It's like what was that Clive Owen movie? Shoot 'em up,
Shoot 'em up.
Shoot 'em up, right? So that movie doesn't take place in any world that we would recognize,
right? Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing you have to buy immediately is that this is not really taking place in the real world, and so once you get past that, it's just kind of strikes me as really really silly with all these implausible characters that I didn't really care that much about. Salma Hayek does a fine job, but then about halfway through this movie, it becomes like a Takashi Miike film with some really messed up stuff. Which
is part of the reason why I'm mostly disagreeing with you here is that it does as much as it can with that one location. It goes to really crazy ends.
Really crazy. Like, I did not think it would go to the extremes that it went to. So at first I was going to come on this podcast and just tell you guys about how this movie wasn't that good. I was sort of thinking about what I was going to say for what we've been watching as I was watching it. And about 45 minutes to an hour in, I was like, wow, I did not expect that at all. And it goes to some really twisted, dark places in the end. To the extent,
in a good way?
In a way that it's just like I have never seen anything like that before. To the extent that I would actually end up kind of recommending the movie just because it's so messed up that there's enough to recommend it. But what did you think, Jermaine? You saw this movie as well.
Yeah, I saw it. I have a review on /film.com, and I agree with you. I think it's serviceable B-movie fun that sort of distinguishes itself by confining it to these rules, and they have to be creative in new ways to do it. And I mean, they sort of pitch it as Die Hard in an apartment, which I guess it kind of is. But I just like that it keeps going. It keeps raising its own bar,
right?
And it is kind of stupid, and it does sort of drag maybe at the beginning as we're sort of setting the table. But I think some of the music's kind of fun and gives it a weird vibe to it, and it's an enjoyable movie. I mean, the fact that it sort of is on VOD now before it comes to theaters is sort of exactly what this movie demands. It's a movie you could throw on and watch for 2 hours and enjoy, legitimately find entertainment in. But I mean, I saw it at Fantastic Fest in September, and probably have thought about it 3 times since then. When we released trailers, that's about it. And you know what? That's a niche of filmmaking right there. I think Joe Lynch goes beyond that with it. I think there are some really cool things in there and some interesting visuals. But yeah, it's not particularly special. But I agree with you, Dave, that in the end you got to recommend it.
It's weird. It's weird. You can hear in Jermaine and my voice how we aren't fully sold on the movie. We're not this is a great movie. You should go and see it. It doesn't even rise to the level of John Wick, which we would say probably is something you should check out.
Yeah.
But it's not a film that I can just dismiss outright either. There is enough there that I feel okay saying check it out.
And that's what VOD was made for.
Exactly. So Everly is available right now on video on demand. I will also say a couple of other things real quick. One is that this movie does something that I've seen rarely done in movies. It integrates cell phone ringtones into the soundtrack of the film, which I thought was very cool. There's this all of the mobsters in this apartment have the same ringtone, and it's this very creepy ringtone.
If you're going to be in our mob, you got to change your ringtone.
Go to settings.
What's funny is
download it from the website www.mobtones.com.
You know what's funny is that this is actually the Yakuza, like the Japanese mob, so it would be really silly if they talk like that.
That would make it even better, right?
That would make it even better. And then it also got me thinking about movies that take place in one location and how movies keep characters in that location, right? And when you think about movies like Phone Booth or ATM or The One I Love, those movies all have a lot in common, by the way. Or Locke, that movie that everyone loved but I almost hated from last year, the Tom Hardy movie. It's kind of interesting to reflect on how different movies keep their characters in those locations. Right? In movies like ATM and Everly and Phone Booth, you have an external force that is just preventing the character from leaving. And then in movies like The One I Love, there's something about the location that compels the characters to stay. And in a movie like Locke, they're building in the motivation into the character itself and why, like, the reason that character can't leave that car is part of that character, part of the character development they're trying to do in the film. So it's just interesting to reflect on, like, why these movies play out in these different ways and what's most effective. I would say in Everly, it's a little bit implausible the way they keep her there, and as a result, I could never buy into the film as a reality. The way that she's kept in that apartment almost becomes it's almost comical how she isn't allowed to leave because
it's almost comical, like the stuff that's in there.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, I'm not going to spoil anything major, but you're like, oh, cool, there's a bunch of guns here. You're like, oh, I'm glad they were there for no reason, you know, but it's still kind of fun.
It's fun. It's fun enough. It's fun enough. That's how I describe it. So that's Everly, available on video on demand. Check it out if you have a chance. That's what I've been watching this week. How about you, Devindra Hardwar?
Sure. I saw the final episode of Parenthood, which actually aired last week, I think. This is the show. The show's finally done, guys. I know, Jeff, you've been watching it, but Dave, Jermaine, have you been watching?
So nervous.
I watched the pilot and then never stuck with it. I know that's
okay.
I know it was a mistake, so you can go whatever you need.
Okay. This show feels like it's been going on forever, so it was, it was kind of momentous to see it finally end. Tells the story of the Braverman family, and it's basically that's all the show is. It's a show about a very big family and kind of the drama they have, between each other. And it's interesting just seeing the show end because I feel like shows like this don't quite exist anymore. A lot of people have written about this, but the sort of like just like simple family drama, right? A very grown-up family drama that is just about characters. There's no hook to it, right? It's not like they're all trying to run a restaurant or, it's not like How I Met Your Mother or something like that. It is straight up people and drama. And looking at it like that, it does feel kind of sad to me that the show is leaving just because I think in that respect, when it came to the drama, the show certainly delivered. I know a lot of people who watch Parenthood just to cry. Like
I cry almost every episode.
Yeah, it's a weirdly cathartic show. And I think after a point, they just realized that and they started like writing to that as well. So it felt, to me, started to feel kind of manipulative, and I've had a lot of issues with the show over the past couple of years. But, I stuck with it. I do like the characters. I like the cast. And the finale, I feel like, was just, I guess this is sort of the ideal way to wrap up this story. And I was making a lot of, like, 6 Feet Under jokes here. Like, if you guys remember the way that series ended.
Great
and
ending.
Weirdly... Yeah. Weirdly, Parenthood goes very similarly, although probably not in the way you'd expect. So, I mean, I'll just leave it at that. But it's very sad for me to see the show go. These people annoyed the hell out of me at times, but I did love many of them. And the actors were great. The writing was good. This was Jason Tatum's follow-up show to Friday Night Lights, and I think that show was just so much better. It was so much more focused, but also that show wasn't just the drama. It did have the football hook. It had a lot of different things going for it, and I think the finale of that show is a lot stronger too, but Friday Night Lights, I don't think it ran for as long, so it was, I guess, maybe a little easier to wrap up that story. So... yeah.
So you're glad you took this journey with them?
I am. I think ultimately I am. Unlike Lost's final couple of seasons, this one was definitely worth it. It's a tough show to rewatch though, because I spent basically a couple months catching up on it last year, and I feel like once it gets back to Netflix or something, it's going to be a huge show for people to rewatch. There's just really good stuff. And I'll say this, Ray Romano, of all people, really saved the show for me. Because he's been in there for the past couple seasons, and he's just been tremendous. And I didn't really think he had that in him. So, yeah.
Well, that's Parenthood. It had its series finale recently. I saw a lot of people tweeting about how glad they were to have watched this show. And, yeah. So
yeah, my wife and I are almost caught up. We are watching the current season on Hulu right now. We powered through on everything up until this season is on Netflix. We powered through. It's a show that we love watching together, and there's a lot of emotional stuff that happens, and it's great for, we just got married recently. It's one of those shows where you kind of work through your family things with the person sitting next to you. I love it. It's basically the show about a family with no boundaries. They have no boundaries.
It's also just kind of super idyllic too. They're all it's a very idyllic view of life, I guess. They're all kind of upper middle class. They're all living around Berkeley, right? They all have a very certain sort of life. So their problems, when they have problems, they don't really seem that important compared to the real problems I feel like a lot of other people are dealing with. But, it's still enjoyable.
It's a lot like Friday Night Lights was for me, although I like that show even more. It's a show about good people trying to do good things and having hardships of life, but there isn't a central villain, there isn't a central antagonist, there isn't a central problem in their way. It's just life problems. It's just people trying to be good and trying to do good things, and I love that about it.
I will say this universe is sort of living on in About a Boy. They both actually take place in the same universe. And I did just start rewatching that too, Jeff. That show is great. So
I got to get on that bandwagon.
Oh, the same universe? It's like MCU stuff?
Yes, it is the same universe. So the characters from Parenthood have been in About a Boy and vice versa. So we may actually get to see some of them again. And I actually thought you were watching About a Boy, Jeff. So it's a great show. It's fantastic. It's on Netflix right now.
Well, I really love Dax Shepard in Parenthood as well. I think his acting chops have shown off in that. It's great.
He shows up in About a Boy. So, yeah.
Oh, man. I got to get on that.
What else you've been watching, Devindra?
I did. I actually just rewatched Gremlins, too. This is the first time I've seen this movie since I was a kid. Wow. So it felt almost like going into it fresh. This is a weird-ass movie. Have you guys seen Gremlins recently?
Yeah.
Last year.
I just saw it. Yeah, I just saw it in October. I think I talked about it on the show maybe.
I think so. Yeah. It feels so weird. This movie today, and I know they're actually remaking it. I know Chris Columbus is kind
of on. That's not actually happening.
There.
That's not true.
It's not happening?
Okay, well, never mind.
No.
The Slash Film story told me otherwise, Jermaine.
Well, maybe it was we look at the date on it, because I don't think it's actually happening. But
when I get on this, Jermaine.
That might have been a Sony leak thing. I don't think it's actually happening, but who knows?
Okay. Well, it would make a ton of sense for rebooting this movie, because Gremlins. So it's weird as hell, right? A guy buys this doll in Chinatown and brings it home and does exactly what the shopkeeper tells him not to do, and all these monsters appear. But the movie, after a point, just kind of goes insane. The Gremlins are just everywhere, and there's one with a trench coat, and he flashes this girl. I'm like, what the hell is going on in this movie? They're smoking, they're drinking, they're shooting each other, and it's a weird movie. I can't really make sense of it. I actually really enjoyed it when I was a kid, just because I loved weird ass things like this. But I'm shocked that I feel like a movie like this just couldn't get made today. it's also weirdly a look at like 80s culture too, because like clearly the Gremlins are like the representation of like all the excess, all the capitalist excess of the 80s and the things where we thought we were so unstoppable we could do for whatever we wanted until we created these Gremlins that destroyed the economy or something like that. So in that respect, this movie would actually be great to reboot or sequelize or something right now. It would fit perfectly.
Well, I actually watched a video essay by Chris Plant recently, who's a writer I quite enjoy, where he argues very convincingly, in my opinion, that Gremlins is a racist fable.
Really?
And
There's a lot of racism in the movie.
yeah, I mean, there is a lot of...
I see it as a metaphor for pubescent change. You know, as it's like, don't feed it after midnight.
Right,
it's going to make you want to do all these horrible things, and you know, it's this teenage kid who is into this girl, and he doesn't know what to do, and he gets this weird thing, and it turns into this creature that makes him want to do crazy things.
It's the release of the id, either as a teenager or as a country gone insane. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that point. I don't think that interpretation is invalid or anything like that. There's certainly multiple ways of reading the film. Let's just say I think it would be very difficult to watch the film if you're an Asian person, and we can leave it at that.
It is super racist.
Yeah.
It is, I think, from the very opening, kind of racist. But it was also like, this is how movies were, guys. It was just like casually, like whatever,
racist caricatures left and right.
Racist caricatures, kind of like weird racist musical cues when Asian people appear in the movie.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you said that, the way movies are. Yesterday, either before or after the Super Bowl, I was watching The Sandlot, and The Sandlot, the ultimate insult in the movie is youth play ball like a girl. And then there's that Super Bowl commercial where like a girl, they're trying to make like a girl into like the new like phrase that's like really super offensive. And it's like, and I understand, why that might be offensive to some people and why the people did that for the ad. But it's like, but even just 10 years before, it was completely fine to say that.
Jermaine, are you becoming like one of those people who thinks Mad Men was the good old days? Is that really what's going on right now?
Also,
but we just said that about the Gremlins. I mean, Gremlins has a lot of things that Devindra said he loved that movie as a kid. Now think about if you watched that movie today as a kid, would you be like,
I was
"Oh my God"?
an idiot as a kid, though.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's not a justification of why the movie's good.
No, it's not. But it's an interesting way of just like the cultural like interpretation.
Yeah.
And how
Yes, you're right. Things were worse before. I agree with you.
The more telling point is that you think Sandlot was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's 20 years ago, Jermaine. 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
How old are you now?
Exactly. I'm like 15 years old.
The good old years of like Snick and Animaniacs. That was 20 years ago.
20 years, yes. No, you're right. I don't know. I don't know why. But you know what I mean. It was just interesting that you brought that up, and I was thinking about that watching the game last night.
Okay, well,
all right.
I hope
bring it in.
I hope the end result is that you were actually in support of that ad.
I was support of that ad, but it was just interesting that.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly backlash, actually.
Pretty ugly backlash. But I agree with you that things that to innocent minds are completely innocuous, take on a worse significance when you get older and understand that racist caricatures are used to ridicule Asian people on a regular basis.
It was the 80s, Dave. Forget about it. Forget
about it. This is
the 80s.
Well, Chris Columbus was never
Chinatown. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never a model of Asian
of racial sensitivity.
Yes. Yeah, sensitivity.
And we should also point out. I just want to also say that if you look up Gremlins on Wikipedia, for instance, Asians aren't the only race that have beef with Gremlins.
Tiny green creatures are offended by the film too.
Definitely. Yeah. All right.
Also, Judge Reinhold's.
Yes.
Judges all across the land were insulted.
In The Good Wife, Judge Reinhold actually plays a judge, which kind of blew my mind for a while. Yeah, that happened. That was the thing that happened.
Didn't you do that in Arrested Development? Yeah.
I still, to this day, remember that joke when he's like, I wanted it to be called Mr. Reinhold's Court.
He did a very similar thing in The Good Wife. It was weird.
He didn't even make the connection that his name was Judge. Okay.
heart.
So, Devindra, what else have you been
One
watching?
last thing I briefly want to mention is Life is Strange, which is not a movie or TV show. It's actually a new game from the studio Don't Nod Entertainment. They did Remember Me a couple years ago. And I just wanted to highlight this because I have become a very big fan of these new narrative adventure games like what Telltale's been doing. And this thing is very similar. It's about a high school girl. She's kind of in a private art school, and she discovers she has the ability to turn back time, which is just a really interesting combination. You may actually enjoy this too, Dave, because it's like, what period in our lives would we want to just like take a step back and like, you know, rewind that stupid thing we said to the person we secretly had a crush on, or to our favorite teacher or something. So I think this,
or if that's the same person, you know,
or the same person, I don't know. But I think this game does a great job of kind of balancing that. It shows like a really interestingly realized world where, you know, the main character is a girl. You're actually sympathizing with her. It's really interesting to see a game like this that is it's really well written. It's incredibly diverse. Like there's a point in the game where you just kind of walk outside and you see a bunch of other characters kind of wandering around. You see people of all different shapes and sizes and colors. And it just made me think like, you know, we're in this really shitty time right now when it comes to games, right? Where a certain subset of Neanderthals are trying to keep things the way they are. And I love that something like this can exist and be produced by a big name publisher like Square and be on every single gaming platform and be available for $5 and anybody can go play it. And maybe they'll be forced to empathize a little. But the game itself is great. It's really well written. I like where the story's going. And I've just been a big fan of these narrative games. I don't know if you guys have too. Like the Game of Thrones Telltale thing, that was fantastic. I'm waiting for the next episode of that, and I've loved what they've done with Walking Dead and stuff over the past couple years. Yeah, but I know, Jeff, you've talked about some of these, right?
Yeah, for sure. I haven't had a chance to play Life is Strange yet, but I'm intrigued by it. It's also episodic, so this is just the first episode. But yeah, I'm definitely
these
intrigued
adventure
by
games
it.
are really kind of playing around with what's possible with gaming and narrative. So, so that's Life is Strange, and it's available on pretty much any platform right now.
Everywhere and everywhere. Yeah.
I got addicted to Sunset Overdrive over the weekend.
Nice. I just started playing that again, actually.
Super fun, super addictive. I probably spent 8 hours playing that game this past weekend.
Wouldn't recommend the narrative part of that game, however.
So you know what, Jeff? I kind of stopped playing when it first came out, but I've just got back into it too, and it is going to some interesting places. I'm a fan.
Yeah. It is really fun, and also it borrows its aesthetic from a lot of different inspirations. One of them is it looks a lot like Scott Pilgrim in the way kind of Scott Pilgrim combined. How do you say stage descriptions with the scene itself. Do you know what I mean?
Like the comic bubbles.
Right,
like
the comic bubbles and all that stuff. I think it's really well integrated. So, anyway, wanted to give a shout out to that game as well. Jeff Kanata, what have you been watching this week?
Oh man, I'm so excited that Justified is back on FX, one of my favorite shows. This is the final season. And it started off with a bang. You can tell they have no more cards they have to hold close to the vest. They are just, it's the last season, so anything goes. This is a fantastic series. I think it is criminal that this show does not get more buzz, more discussion as one of the great narrative shows on television right now, because it is, I think it's shoulder to shoulder with anything you want to put up. The first season...
It did initially, right? It did get some buzz initially, because I remember when the first season happened. The second season was tremendous. We all talked about that. We were all big fans of the show. But third season I kind of dropped off, because it felt like so much weaker.
I can also tell you that... so a lot of people asked me last year or a couple years ago what happened to the Justified cast, which is this TV podcast I did recapping Justified. I did that show with Jana Robinson. We stopped doing that show. She is now doing a Justified podcast, so I recommend you check that out if you want to listen to a Justified podcast. But one of the reasons is we have limited time, I say, as I just described playing Sunset Overdrive for 8 hours. And so we have limited time, and we can only allocate that time to stuff that we think will be high impact. And I can tell you, like, anecdotally, I've done 3 TV podcasts. Justified podcast, a Game of Thrones podcast, and a Breaking Bad podcast, and I think the Justified podcast was the Game of Thrones podcast probably gets about 30 times as many downloads as a Justified podcast.
Hence my declaration that it is criminal that this show does not get the amount of buzz and respect that it deserves.
Did it get better, though, Jeff? Because Season 3 felt super weak.
Season 3 was bad. It was probably the worst season, in my opinion.
I just stopped at
Season 4 was fantastic. Season 5 was fantastic.
Okay.
Actually, is this Season 5 right now?
This is Season 6.
This is Season 6. So Season 4 was fantastic. Season 5 was fantastic. And this is a concluding season, and it's apparently also very good, right?
Okay.
Starting off really well, and it's wonderful narrative, or continuing the story. You know, it's there, you do have to watch it from the beginning. The first season, unfortunately, was a little bit Monster of the Weeky, and then it just completely abandoned that in the second season. And now everything is it's
all serialized right now.
All serialized, all just one narrative, and it's great.
Well, I kind of miss the Monster of the Weeky stuff from the first season, honestly, because third season went all into that plot, and that plot was just crap.
Well, what was great? I remember interviewing Graham Yost, the showrunner for Justified, and you can actually listen to that show, that episode on the Justified cast. And he was speculating what Season 3 would bring, and something he said was, rather than introduce a new villain every season, right, which is what they did with Season 1 and 2, that they were going to look at existing characters and try to pull out plots from those characters. And that's what was incredible about, I thought, Seasons 4 and 5, was you have characters that seem to be total side characters, right? Yeah. That then suddenly the show introduced this massive backstory for them that would be consequential to the A plot line.
Yeah.
And I just thought the way it did that was genius.
Yeah, last season the Crow family was the center. This Dewey Crow was just sort of this comedic side guy, and his whole family became the centerpiece around which the narrative flowed in that season. And that was really great. The thing that's so wonderful about Justified, zingers, man, zingers like you've never seen, like the best, like awesome, badass cowboy zingers, right? But also, there's nothing else like this on TV. Yeah. It isn't. It is a milieu. It is a style. It is a cast of characters that is completely unique.
I want to say that I've never watched an episode, but that might be the problem, right? I mean, not in the narrative sense, but in the how the hell do we market this show sense, right? Nobody watches it. I always was like, when that first show came out, I'm like, I don't really want to watch a show set in the Old West. And it's obviously not
the Old West.
I know that, but that's
what
the way,
the commercials seem like.
That was my perception of it. And it wasn't until like 2 seasons in, and I was like, it's just like a crime and a cop show, okay, or whatever, but with more whatever.
It's an Elmore Leonard show.
It is really hard to describe, Jeff. I mean,
I don't think it's hard to describe.
I'm not shitting on the show because I've never seen an episode. But like I said, that's just, to me, listening to you guys talk about it, that was that's why I never got into it, because I had no idea what it was.
I've always described it this way. What if the fastest gun in the West was alive today? What would his life be like? That's what it is. He's the fastest. He is that classic old Western fastest draw in the West. But if he was alive today and living in Kentucky, he'd be a U.S. Marshal, and he would get a lot of crap for shooting people dead. And that's what the show is.
I mean, see, that's the thing, is I don't agree that that's a good way to describe the show. They pretty much,
that's exactly what it is.
They pretty much jettison that whole idea of he has killed dozens of people during the course of the show, and the first time he killed someone, it was a huge deal, and then it
was the very first scene of the show.
Yeah, the very first scene of the entire show, and it was like, my gosh, such a huge deal that he killed this person, and then since then,
that central act has been the through line of the entire. Like everything that's happened is a result of him getting kicked out of Miami and having to be here in Kentucky, and all the people that were around. He created a power vacuum in Miami, and everything that's happened because of that one act.
Yeah, well, agree to disagree, Jeff. But
I feel like we're watching different shows here, Dave.
Maybe so. Anyway,
we're watching power vacuums. I don't know what's happening.
We both agree that the show is awesome. And this conversation has inspired me to check out the season premiere, and I think the second episode is also already aired this season. So that's Justified, and
I think I know why your Justified podcast didn't do very well.
Oh, snap!
What is the show we're watching, Joanna? I don't get it.
Actually, you just described the Game of Thrones podcast, Jermaine.
Yeah.
So that is Justified. It's on FX right now. All right, let's move on. Before we do that, though, we got to thank all the people that donated to the /Filmcast this week. Thanks to alientrap.org for their generous donation, and Emmanuel R. from Bridgeport, Connecticut. Thanks also to new subscribers William H., Scott H., Hakeem T., and Grady B., donating at the rate of $2 per month. If you like what we do here on the Filmcast and want to support us and help us pay for the cost of seeing movies and recording this podcast, go to /film.com and use the PayPal links on the side of the page. Really appreciate all of your donations on a weekly basis. So, Jermaine Lussier,
Hello.
You went to Sundance this year.
Again, this is my 6th year in a row.
Your 6th year going to Sundance, and so I want to ask you, like, best film you saw, most disappointing film you saw. But first, let's start with kind of overall what the mood was there. I mean,
sure.
What did you think of the overall slate this year?
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. Every year, pretty much that I've gone, there's been like probably 1 to 3 big movies that's like the must see. Like maybe last year it was Boyhood, right, or The Raid 2. And then usually the best movie breaks out into something you never heard of, like Whiplash or Beast of the Southern Wild. This year, there was not one standout movie that everyone needed to see or was talking about going into the festival, which I felt was very unique. There was definitely movies with pretty well-known directors, a lot of well-known stars, but no big movie that you'd heard of. There was no like Red State. I think, Dave, last time I was there with you, that was a movie, obviously, that was great, but it was a movie everybody was curious about, wanted to know about. This year, there was none of that. So me, Peter, and Russ, we all sort of just went in blind. Just sort of, hit the ground running, seeing as many movies as we can and just seeing as many diverse things as we can, anything that appeals to us personally for any reason, because you're just trying to find that movie, or those handful of movies. And I think I'm 95% sure I did. You never know how things are going to go months and months down the road. But overall, I ended up seeing 25 movies in about 8 days. That's with, it's 8, no, whatever, long story. 7 full days. And out of those 25 movies, I legitimately had good things to say about 23 of them. 2 of them I did, yeah, exactly. 2 of them I didn't like. 1 of them I hated. Only 1 I hated. And then I would say that there are 5 great movies I saw, 2 or 3 that stand above the rest. So that's pretty great. Like, if I'm looking at, we did a best of the festival post on /Film, and then me, Peter, and Russ each ranked every single movie we saw. So I'm just looking at my own list as a reference here, and I would say everything from 1 to 23, I could find reasons to recommend it for you.
Wow.
So it was super duper strong. I honestly, being up there and seeing, we saw like 48 of the 100 or so narratives. A lot of the movies I missed were supposed to be really great. I heard very few movies that were bad. Probably 5 movies I heard that were bad out of like the hundreds that I heard people talking about. So that was the sort of the temperature of Sundance this year. It was incredibly solid, and I mean, and it's sort of reflected in the fact that as of today, I believe 32 of the films have been picked up for distribution.
Right, which is a pretty high number from
Very high.
Yeah, like oftentimes at Sundance, there's just tons of movies that don't get any distribution at all, or at least not distribution coming out of the festival.
Right, they might do it at later at a different festival, or like months down the road once every other thing has been exhausted.
Right.
But yeah, 32 films out of Sundance, either starting before, like 2 weeks before the festival, up to today. We've been updating it.
Which is
30%.
great. Which is great for us as filmgoers, because one of the most frustrating things about reading Sundance coverage is, oh, hey, this movie is incredible, but you're not going to see it for another 2.5 years from now.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, or at least it's not going to be that long. You might still need to wait a year or two until you can see it.
Yeah.
But it will happen in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, of my top 5 movies that I saw, 4 of them have distribution right now, and one of the movies that got distribution at 32 is the worst movie I saw at Sundance. So that's the other thing too. You can't take it that if a movie gets picked up for distribution, it's necessarily that good. It might just be necessarily that marketable,
right?
Right. Because if you spend $2 million on a movie, that's not a lot of money to make back in the scheme of things. So it's pretty interesting.
Favorite movie of the festival, Jermaine?
My favorite movie of the festival is the movie. It's the hack. It ends up being the hack answer, even though I said it from the first time I saw it, which is Me and Earl and the Dying Girl,
which is a film I believe that won the audience and grand jury prize. Right? Is that correct?
It did. So that's why I said it's the hack answer. It's the movie that everybody says is their favorite movie of the festival, and it was actually edited by a friend of Slash Film, Dan Trachtenberg's brother, which is why we heard about it. Which is really funny. Dave Trachtenberg, because it's a movie that it was not on anybody's radar. The description in the book, the Sundance sort of description, didn't really light anybody up. But Dan told us, I saw this movie, my brother, and it is really good. You guys should check it out. So we were like, okay, we'll go check it out. And, because at Sundance, any kind of recommendation you take, you'll grab. It's from a director. He's only made one other feature. He did the remake of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. He's done a bunch of TV before that. Including American Horror Story, Alfonso Gomez Rayon, and the movie just it knocked our socks off. It's hard. It's a very weird adjective, but it's Sundance. It's 100%, 150% Sundance, where it's a mix of heartfelt coming of age drama and emotion. And it's about a young boy played by Thomas Mann, who most people would know as the lead kid from Project X, maybe. Who is sort of forced by his mom to become friends with this girl who is dying with leukemia. She's played by Olivia Cooke, who starred in Ouija and The Loved Ones, I think is the name of the movie. And so there, that was all we knew about the movie going in. But what you didn't know is that Gomez just directs the hell out of this movie, makes it almost like it's got this insane. Just vibrancy to it. There's tracking shots and there's just angles and there's long takes and it's crazy good. And it's got a great balance of, like I said, all those tones. And what's really fun about it too is that his real character's name is not me, it's Greg. And Earl of the title, they sort of in their spare time make movies. They're sort of like the Be Kind Rewind guys. So in their spare time they make versions of movies, and the whole movie knows it's a movie and really plays with that, and has this subtext of a love of cinema, and that sort of buoys the movie up to this incredible level. It's so good. Like I said, Peter and I were at the first screening, and we just standing ovation the entire time, and it was like, this is why you come to Sundance. And I was literally nervous, because I put up a very, impactful tweet. So did Peter out of that first screening, and a bunch of people changed their schedules to go see the next screening because they're like, "Oh my God, is this the big movie?" I get at this year is this the Whiplash? And then out of that screening, everybody was like, "Oh my God, the movie crushed me. I cried. It was so good." And I'm like, "Yes, got it." Do
you think this is going to be like a Little Miss Sunshine or 500 Days of Summer, where it's going to break into the mainstream? I mean. Go ahead. Yeah, no, it absolutely has that pedigree. I mean, it's got stars in it. I mean, stars, quote unquote. Nick Offerman has a small role. John Barenthal from The Walking Dead, Connie Britton, Molly Shannon. But they're the adults in a story about kids for the most part. I think it definitely has that chance to break out. Fox Searchlight picked it up, and if there's a studio for sort of this kind of movie, that's the studio. It definitely has a chance, and the last few movies that have won both the grand jury and the audience are all movies that did well, and a lot of them got Oscar nominations. I mean, Precious, I believe, got at least that. Beast of Southern Wild, Whiplash. I think the only one that didn't get really any Oscar nominations was Fruitvale Station, but that won both as well. And of course, people heard about it and saw it. So it's definitely going to have a life this year, and be one of the. It's going to be in the mix for maybe not award season stuff, but for the people who listen to this podcast and you guys, it's going to be on some top 10 lists. It's a great movie. Cool. Well, that's Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and you heard about that film on the Slash Filmcast.
Can I ask you a question in all seriousness,
yes, sir.
Jermaine? 25 movies in 8 days.
Yeah. Yes.
I love movies, and to me that sounds a little bit like a form of torture. I love movies. I'm on this podcast.
Yeah.
I love movies, but does that take a toll? What's that like?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeff. Good question, sir.
Thank you.
It's really exhausting. You're really tired because people always say like, "Oh, you just watch movies all day." Yeah, I'm watching movies, but I'm also thinking about movies and writing about movies. And when you have to see the movies, process the movies, even if I don't write about every movie, then get to the next movie, Sundance is a marathon, man. It really is. And on one of the days, I saw 5 movies. I believe it was. Let me look at my notes here. Excuse me. The Monday of the festival, I started the day at 8:30 a.m. and I ended the movie at 2 a.m. The day at 2 a.m. So I saw 5 movies. And when I was sitting down for that last movie, which just so happened to be Rodney Asher, the guy who did Room 237's The Nightmare, it was like 11:45 at night, and people were like, what did you see today? And I literally couldn't remember. You don't remember.
How was The Nightmare, by the way?
It was good. It was good. I wrote a review on the site. It's not as good as Room 237, but it's got some really scary moments. It's interesting. It's just a little repetitive. But
you didn't remember. You didn't remember the movies you saw that day.
No, I do. But the thing is that I work my schedule enough that I can write about them. I write about them as fast as possible. And I take notes and stuff. And it's not so much I don't remember the movies. It's like, what'd you see today? And then you have to think like, okay, where was I this morning? All right, I was watching Ewan McGregor play Jesus. Got it. Where'd I go after that? Then I went to the Holiday Theater. What'd I see there? Oh, a documentary about – you piece it together. But, yeah, no, Jeff, you're right. It's crazy. And by the end of the year, a movie will come out that I'll be like, did I write a review of that at Sundance? And I'll go back and read my review like it was brand new. And then it'll click again.
Yeah.
Does it have an effect on your opinion of the movies?
Yeah, that's another. Yeah, it does. I mean, so I just talked the crap up of Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, right? And everybody there really, really loved it. But now my hype and the hype of Sundance definitely gives that movie expectations that it doesn't quite meet. It's one of the dangers of Sundance. Even a movie as good as Whiplash that I saw at Sundance last year, when I saw it again after the fact, I really, really liked it. I mean, it was like my number 4 movie of the year this year. I mean, I really liked it. But it didn't have that buzz around it. I mean, the best example for me was Beast of the Southern Wild. That was like the movie at Sundance 3 years ago. And all we were talking about was how great Beast of the Southern Wild was. And then I took my girlfriend Jane to see it when it came out in theaters. And she was like, yeah, that was good. It was interesting. But it wasn't like the Sundance buzz is unreal because people there want to be there for the first screening of Reservoir Dogs. They want to be there for the first screening of The Usual Suspects, any number of movies that premiered at Sundance. That's what it's all about, And I felt like that in Me and Earl, and did that maybe make me think more of it? It's very, very possible. And everybody pretty much acknowledges that. That's why when you really love a movie at Sundance, you have to see it again later. But I think on the other hand, if you really hate a movie at Sundance, it's really bad. And here's a really quick example before we end this thing, is that I saw a movie Sundance I was very excited to see called Mississippi Grind. It's directed by the people who did Half Nelson. It's about gambling, and it's got Ben Mendelsohn, Ryan Reynolds, and I like gambling movies, so I was like, I'm very excited for this. And the movie was good. But I walked out of it saying, if I saw that in April, just in the middle of nowhere,
right,
I would have thought it was great. But in the middle of 25 movies at Sundance, some of which are as good as Me and Earl and Dying Girl or Racing Extinction or Dope, a couple of my favorite movies, it just was like, it just falls down. It's like a deflated balloon, So Sundance, yeah, it's a really weird week. Incredibly rewarding, but incredibly nuanced.
Yeah, so Dope, that's another movie that Peter Soretta, editor-in-chief of SlashFilm.com, was a huge fan of coming out of Sundance. And that also got a distribution deal, I believe, right?
Yeah, Open Road picked that up, and that's coming out in June. And yeah, I mean, Peter just described it really well. It's sort of Superbad meets Go vis-a-vis Boys in the Hood. I mean, it's like a bunch of kids who like just mess with each other, who get into this drug deal, and they live in like South Central Los Angeles, and they love 90s hip-hop. But it's set today. So it's super nostalgic, and it's super flashy, and it's really fun, but it's really exciting. Great, great movie.
So, Jeff, as someone who went to Sundance 2 years in a row a while ago, I can also say that it is exhausting because it's not even the seeing the movies, in my opinion, that's exhausting. It's the covering them that is more exhausting. Because you need to see the movie and then you need to think about it and write about it or video blog about it, whatever we did. And when you're trying to do 4 or 5 movies and then you sort of add that up and how much time that all takes. And also, I think what made it really bad for me when I went is I was living in Boston at the time, so I was on East Coast time. So there'd be movies playing at midnight Sundance time and ending at 2 a.m. Sundance time. That would be,
and then they start again at 8:30 a.m. It's not a festival like that's built for seeing a lot of movies, which is really kind of funny. Actually, no, I mean it's actually built for seeing a lot of movies, but it's not audience friendly. Where like a festival like Fantastic Fest, they do midnight movies, but they don't start movies until noon. So hypothetically, you can have fun and party or just sleep really well.
Right.
Sundance, it's like, oh, you're out of your movie at 2 a.m.? Well, take your cab ride home. That's a half hour. Write about the movie for a half hour. Now sleep for 4 hours. Now get up to get tickets to the next movie and see it at 8:30 in the morning.
Right.
It's a brutal week.
Yeah. So that is brutal, but at the same time, it is so exhilarating. Like there's nothing else like it because, as Jermaine said, you could be there for the new Reservoir Dogs. I remember being there for one of the first screenings of the film Catfish. Which has now become a term that is in the American lexicon for being in an internet relationship that's fake. That is now called catfishing, right? That we were there.
Jeff hasn't seen the trailer yet. Jesus Christ!
We were there at the creation of that term, and not only that, like the atmosphere is amazing. Because the filmmakers are all there. Many of them are first-time filmmakers, and you're just there. They're there ready to talk about their work. And
I don't want to. Dave, I don't want to say things sound like I'm complaining about it.
Right.
It is like my favorite week of the year. It's just difficult, but it's so much fun, and I wouldn't trade for anything. I mean, if I ended up losing my job at Slash Film and working at McDonald's or something, I would still try to save money to go to Sundance because it's so frigging awesome. Right.
And honestly, I went there a couple years in a row, and then I've been chasing that feeling ever since. Like I've resolved to go back to Sundance again, either as a civilian or covering it, or as a filmmaker. So it's something that it's really an incredible experience that I won't forget. So looking forward to checking it out one more time. But Jermaine, thanks for reporting back. So Me and Earl and the Dying Girl and Dope and The Nightmare are the movies that you mentioned. Anything else you just want to give a very quick shout out to before we move to
real quick, 2 other movies I think probably. Racing Extinction, which is the next movie by the guy who did The Cove. I think it's honestly probably not as socially impactful from The Cove, but a better movie than The Cove, a more exhilarating movie than The Cove. Does not have distribution yet. That's called Racing Extinction. And then The End of the Tour, which is James Ponsol's next film. He did The Spectacular Now, and it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel. Jason Segel plays David Foster Wallace.
Wow.
And Jason Segel gives a performance. In my review, I sort of said if Tom Hanks had Philadelphia and Jim Carrey had The Truman Show, Jason Segel has The End of the Tour. He's phenomenal in the movie. It's a really great, well-written, snappy but very introspective movie that's coming out later this year too. Really, really good. And then real quick, Finders Keepers is this documentary that's sort of like it's produced by Seth Gordon, who did The King of Kong, and it's got that tone, and it's really, really good too. So, I mean, like I said, I could go down 20 of my movies and recommend them, but those are the 5 that really stood out to me.
I like what Russ had to say about The End of the Tour, which is he can't imagine David Foster Wallace enjoying a movie, like being okay with the idea of a movie about him, but even he would probably have to admit that movie works.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jermaine, welcome back to the land of watching 2 movies a week instead of 25.
I know, it's crazy. I only have 2 movies on my schedule this week. I feel terrible.
But thanks for reporting back from Sundance.
Got it.
All right, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever shave your back?
My back? No, I am oddly hairless on my back, but as much hair as my face gets, my chest and back are like a baby's newborn bottom.
I once had a conversation with one of my high school teachers, and she was talking about how girls sometimes find Asian men to be bizarre. And I was like, well, why? And
this was your high school teacher.
Yeah, because they are
gremlins.
They are frightening and hairless. And I said, wow, I didn't know being hairless was such an atypical thing. So anyway, why am I bringing all this up, guys?
That is a good question.
That is a good question. Because as an Asian male, shaving can be a weird experience because, firstly, we don't have we have very little hair on our bodies. It all comes out on the face, and even then, it doesn't really come out in an even fashion, right?
Right.
It comes out patchy, uneven, unkempt,
which probably requires more maintenance.
I mean,
I can go like
intermittently
2-3 weeks without shaving, and it just looks rugged.
When I go 2 to 3 weeks without shaving, it looks like I'm a person who went 2 to 3 weeks without shaving. It doesn't look intentional. It doesn't look rugged. It looks quite troubling. Anyway, why am I bringing this up? Well, because here's the thing, guys. Getting razors to shave, it can be a huge pain in the ass.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You got to go to the store. Oftentimes, the razors are locked. You can't just walk it up to the counter like you would any other item in the store. It's like soap and razors are very highly prized, and here's another thing: they are super expensive, guys.
Yeah.
So if only there was a service that could remedy a lot of these problems. And guys, let me tell you.
I guess there might not. We might as well just pack it in, Dave, because it doesn't sound like there is one.
Well, Jeff, that's where you'd be wrong.
What?
Because there is something called Harry's at harrys.com, which is an awesome shaving assistant site that delivers razors straight to your doorstep. Harry's makes their own blades. High quality, high performing German blades crafted by shaving experts that gives you a better shave that respects your face and your wallet. It's really cheap. It's really convenient. And if you use promo code Filmcast, you get $5 off your first order. So really, I mean, there's no reason for you to hold back right now. Promo code Filmcast at harrys.com. That's HARRYS.com. And right now they're selling the Truman set for $15. You use promo code Filmcast, you get that for $10. And it comes with a new foaming gel that makes it really easy to scrape stuff off your face or whatever part of your body you are capable of growing hair on, unlike myself. So anyway, that's harrys.com. And use promo code Filmcast to get $5 off. They are a proud sponsor of the /Filmcast, and we are proud to have them.
Yes, indeed.
I really want to go back to this conversation with your high school teacher, Dave.
You're really why did this conversation happen?
Yeah.
I cannot, comment on the context of that conversation. Jermaine, I noticed you've been doing interesting things with facial hair recently. Didn't you have a mustache?
I did. 2014 was the year of the mustache. 2015 was the year my mom hated the mustache, so I gave her a Christmas present, which was no more mustache.
I just thought you were doing her cosplay the whole year, Jermaine.
Exactly. Well, I did actually cosplay as her for a party here in LA last year. Our friend Silas at Coming Soon does a best of the year party. We have to dress up as somebody from a movie that year. And obviously her last year was my
Joaquin
go-to.
Phoenix from Her. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, correct. Well, I had Samantha in my ear. But I didn't use Harry's, but maybe I should have. That was probably my mistake there. Everybody liked it more.
I think you only grew that very sketchy looking mustache because you didn't have a convenient, cheap, comfortable way to shave it off.
No, I was using these supermarket shavers, and they were. You don't need to have it doesn't need to vibrate. Well, what is that? It's garbage.
Yes. That's what I keep telling my girlfriend. Anyway,
there it is.
Harrys.com, promo code Filmcast, $5 off your order. Let's move on to our review of Inherent Vice.
If it's a quiet night out at the beach and your ex-old lady suddenly out of nowhere shows up with a story about her current billionaire land developer boyfriend, and his wife and her boyfriend and a plot to kidnap the billionaire and throw him in a loony bin.
I need your help, Doc.
Maybe you should just look the other way. But if you're Doc, it may all start to get a little peculiar after that.
Michael Z. Wolfman.
And Mickey Wolfman.
And Mickey Wolfman
has vanished.
So where would I find him?
He's technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi.
And a girl don't necessarily want to get into difficulties with those folks.
You got a spare picture I could borrow?
That was from the trailer of Inherent Vice, the newest film by writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson, based on the novel by Thomas Pynchon. It stars Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin, along with a bunch of other people who I won't spoil right now. I will read the plot summary from IMDb. In 1970, drug-fueled Los Angeles detective Larry Doc Sportello investigates the disappearance of a former girlfriend. So, Jermaine Lucier, you wrote a very glowing review of Inherent Vice on the site. I think this was one of your top 10 films of 2014, was it not?
It was. It was my number 2 film of the year.
So what did you like most about Inherent Vice?
Paul Thomas Anderson is my favorite director, so I might be a little bit in the bag for this one, I will admit. But what I love most about it is how different it is. I mean, I've never read the Pynchon novel. I know a little bit about his style. But I just love that it's a movie that is about so many things other than plot. And that's terrible because you watch a movie, you think, the plot is the most important thing, a good story. And yes, I agree with that, but and it almost sounds like a cop-out to say it, and I've had this conversation many times since I saw Inherent Vice, but it's a movie about really great characters, really interesting dialogue, really fun settings, really weird situations. And I felt like the narrative flow, I described it as a choose-your-own-adventure novel where the main character is basically just saying yes to every single thing that comes up for him. And like it's like, oh, we're going to look for a pirate ship. Okay, well, we're going to go to this sex store. Okay, oh, we're going to go to this dentist. Okay. And it's just like, what happens if that happens? And if you take that with these incredible actors, with this very well-written script, through the eyes of Paul Thomas Anderson, you're just left with something wholly original, incredibly funny, like laugh-out-loud funny from, no, I don't want to say beginning to end, but a lot of it. And, with some really strong dramatic beats there. And it's just a super unique movie that, like, I just couldn't stop thinking about and still can't stop thinking about.
Jeff Canada, let's go to you.
Well, I am also a guy who would consider myself in the bag for Paul Thomas Anderson. I've never not loved one of his movies. All of his movies, I think he's a genius. I think he's, and I don't throw that term around often, but I do think he is a genius. I think his movies are more than just amazing. They are dense filmic achievements. He is often trying for something that most directors don't even try to do. And that is what's so exciting for him. And that is certainly on display in Inherent Vice. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get inside this one. It's literally the first of his movies that I walked out of and went, I appreciate what he's attempting. I appreciate the idea that Jermaine explained well of creating this universe that is there to simply put you off guard, to simply cast you and keep you off balance and give you this sort of drug-addled trip through a seedy underworld of oddness. I dig that. I describe this movie as The Big Lebowski meets The Long Goodbye with hints of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. 3 movies I like, which would lead you to believe I'd like this one, but it doesn't have the accessibility of any one of those 3 movies, and it's extremely dense. It is a movie I only saw once, and I wish I could say I wanted to go back and see it again to sort of unpack it better, which I think it deserves. I heard Paul Thomas Anderson on the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, and the way he spoke about the movie I enjoyed far more than the movie itself. I wasn't inside the experience. I wasn't compelled by any of the characters. I'm not much of a drug user in my life, never have been, and so I'm not sort of intrigued by that culture, and I never was compelled by the clash of cultures that the movie is about as well. The straight-laced, by-the-book cop world and the drug, let-it-be, free love hippie culture. The intersection of that, this movie, I think, could have been interesting and wasn't to me either. So I wish I liked it more. I just did not.
All right, Devindra Hardwar, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been begging, basically, for us to review this thing. So I'm very glad that we kind of had the chance to do it. It didn't make my top 10 last year, just because I saw it a couple days before we did that episode. And honestly, I had liked the film at that point, but I wasn't quite with it. But I just rewatched it yesterday, and boy, am I just fully on board for this movie. It's one of those movies you have to see twice, basically. And I can understand, like, if you didn't dig it the first time, like, yeah, why would you see that movie again? But, think back to times in your life where maybe giving a movie another chance kind of paid off. For me, that was Blade Runner, because I really wasn't into it the first time I saw it. That's also because that movie does so many things so differently and so oddly. But you go back and when you're in the groove of Blade Runner, you can truly appreciate like all the little aspects of it. And that's exactly what happened to me with the second viewing of Inherent Vice. Like at this point, when I went back, I knew that this wasn't a plot-heavy movie, or at least it actually is super plot-heavy, but the plot doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's interesting to me to see Paul Thomas Anderson continue to take chances, because this is a guy, like, genius is a word that's been thrown at him, often. We talked about him doing, he did Boogie Nights when he was, 26 or 27? Like, he's kind of a smart dude when it comes to cinema. And, unlike a lot of other young ingenues, like a certain Francis Ford Coppola, I do feel like when you peak so high, so young, there's a danger, right? Of just like, okay, you got to do something new. You feel like you've made some of the best movies ever. Let's just go somewhere completely different. Let's not worry about the quality of it. And I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson has been kind of balancing that, right? Because he's continually pushed himself. He's never really made the same movie twice. Except for, I think the one I like the least of his is probably Magnolia, just because... It felt,
take the knife out of my heart.
No, it's fine.
Devindra.
It feels like, another sprawling epic, very similar to Boogie Nights, but never quite connected to me emotionally in a really good way. But Punch Drunk Love, I loved. There Will Be Blood is just fascinating, the way it's constructed. He's always doing something different, and this is his sort of Big Lebowski, basically, right? It's his kind of sprawling tale where plot doesn't matter, and it's really about the experience and the characters and the setting and the vibe. And I don't know, like that's really it. That's what I really fell in love with the second time. The movie, it's ostensibly about, a druggy dude, a druggy PI who goes on misadventures. It's like an extended episode of a Scooby-Doo thing or something, right? But there's so much more going on there too. Like there's a great romantic through line through the film, with Joaquin Phoenix's character, but also with other characters in the film too. And the overall idea of the film is really about this, like, it's like the death of a dream, right? The death of a dream of the 70s, or a certain kind of culture that existed, and it's slowly being ripped apart by evil forces. In this movie, there's literally an evil group of people who are trying to co-opt things that were once special and unique. And it made me feel for a time that I never saw, right? I was born in 1984. I have no conception of what was going on in the 70s and the 60s. And it just made me feel so wistful of that time. I'm not a big drug user either, but I think this movie also does a great job of kind of giving you that sense, right, of how you may feel just being totally discombobulated. And the way that the plot is thrown at you and then doesn't really matter, it's kind of confusing. The way that the movie moves slowly and then moves super fast at certain times is just disorienting. I loved all that about the film. Like, I just really appreciated all that. So I've got a lot more to say, but at this point, I love it, and I wish I had made room for it in my top 10.
I'll offer a few thoughts on this movie. I think in its favor, this is a movie that is very funny at times, like hilarious at times.
Oh, yeah.
Just the way Sportello bounces off these other characters, and also the ways that certain scenarios are really, really exaggerated, kind of hyper reality.
There's a certain car ride.
I've gone to a couple business establishments where it's been just like that.
So those parts are very amusing, and
the take he does at the photo that the woman shows him,
so good,
is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in any movie.
So good, and it is the perfect amount of time that reaction is, right?
Exactly.
It's just
it's trailer for people.
It's in the trailer. We're referring to this reaction that Joaquin Phoenix has to a photo,
but the full reaction isn't in the trailer because it's a scream and then it's a scream directly into all right. I see what's going on here.
Perfect.
It is hilarious, and so there's definitely many moments throughout the movie that are very, very amusing, and I genuinely laughed. I also think that this is there was this tour that P.T. Anderson was doing, right? Wasn't he going, like, he was encouraging people to show up high to the film?
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Jermaine? Like,
it doesn't really ring a bell, but I don't put it past him. I mean, I feel like
you weren't there.
There you go. Because I do sort of feel like this is a movie that you can either analyze, like we're sort of trying to do now, or put in the background. I wrote some review of like a party and just be like watching, like, oh, this scene's so cool, and like it doesn't matter. Like that's the scene, you know. So I wouldn't put it past him to do that, but I think it sort of undermines what he's doing.
Alamo Drafthouse had a quote unquote hazy adventure where they encourage you to show up high or smoke at this Alamo Drafthouse Theater in suburban Denver, which is one of the only places that's legal. Another one of those places is Washington State,
California,
and also California. And I will say, not having had any experience with that, of course.
You're really not taking advantage of your position right now.
I'll just say that, in my opinion, that this movie would be a really good movie to get high to. And I think I started thinking about what are good movies to get high to, and what are characteristics of good movies to get high to. And I think there are a few characteristics, right? If you think about movies like
they have to be in color.
They have to be in color. That's right. That's a really good one.
Sound.
They have to have drugs in them.
They have to have drugs.
They don't have to.
But you think about movies. You think about movies like actually, all the movies I'm thinking of fall into those categories. Because I'm thinking about Beyond the Black Rainbow. I'm thinking about The Big Lebowski. I'm thinking about Enter the Void.
Also, 2001 was a big one.
2001, yeah, that's another good one.
No
right?
drugs in that one.
No drugs.
And there are a lot of common characteristics, right? That amazing sort of psychedelic imagery, soundtrack.
Wizard of Oz.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
It was the non-drug guy telling us drug movies. Keep coming, Joe.
A soundtrack that is like very repetitive. Right, mm-hmm. That has like very recurring motifs that occur over and over again. That kind of is almost like ambient and slow, right? And also just like we said, trippy imagery.
I don't think that's necessarily. I mean, those are all good to watch on drugs. But as somebody who did a lot of drugs in college and watched a lot of movies, we sort of stayed to the stupid comedies.
Well, that's the thing is from what people tell me, and not from what I've experienced myself.
Really treading on the ice here,
what do you call it? Yeah, like things are just inherently funnier when you are on under the influence of marijuana, right?
Speaking of which, we always recommend listening to the /Filmcast after having
a couple tokes, right?
A little bit. It adds to the enjoyment.
Yeah.
I mean, almost, Dave, like this movie doesn't quite seem like a movie you'd want to get high to. I think it actually recreates that feeling of being discombobulated, of like having so much stuff coming at you and just like not knowing what's going on. And we're in a car now and we're driving and what is happening? The movie is that all the way through.
That's an interesting point, Devindra. Though, and like I said, I've only seen it the once. I'm dying to see it again. I don't know why I haven't. Just been busy, but I felt like if you look at Anderson's other movies, you know, everything that we just mentioned, this movie is a little more reined in visually, camera-wise, right? I mean, which is odd, right? I think it was also he's just thinking more about Pynchon. He's thinking more about the script. But I feel like maybe his other movies, if he had put, you know, a lot of long takes, a lot of like different lenses onto this movie, maybe it would have had more of this like trippy visual, because I felt it was very straightforward kind of visually.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's kind of straightforward narratively too. It's just that it gives you too much all at once and doesn't quite wrap up everything. Like it's kind of funny. Like we say it has no plot. It honestly has too much plot, but that's kind of the point too. Doesn't quite know what to do with it.
Overall, I would say I enjoyed the movie. I found it to be very frustrating. I think if you, at the beginning, before the movie even begins, if you surrender any notion that this movie is going to adhere to any sort of standard movie conventions about plot, about character development, and you just enjoy the atmosphere, the conversations these people are having, the humor, I think you'll have a very good time with this movie.
But at the same time, I think I agree with you, Dave. That was like the first thing in my review. I said, do not worry about the story here. Just sort of watch it and enjoy it. But most people are saying, like, but movies are about that. Like, how can you tell me not to watch the story? And
go ahead.
At the same time, but it's like, it's almost like mainstream avant-garde cinema, kind of.
Right,
where, and that's not something most people want to see. They want to see, we talk about American Sniper, and just using it as a big popular movie.
You want to see the Western,
Oh yeah, you want to see the story of the hero, redeeming himself and defeating the bad guy. And Inherent Vice is not that.
Well, I think there's a lot in between those two things.
Just going to say the same thing.
I think there's a lot between Inherent Vice and American Sniper, and I think
I just use it as an example of like big time hit movie that is connecting with audiences at the moment.
Part of the thrill of watching a movie is and we've said this again and again, watching directors work within certain constraints, like a 90 to 120 minute runtime. This movie's 2.5 hours. Watching them work within certain constraints, like you have this long to tell a story, you have this many characters to tell a story. You must hit these specific beats, and or you must have some kind of story arc to your film in order for the audience to be satisfied, and so on. Like, it's watching them work within constraints to create something that moves you, something that thrills you, And when you watch a movie like Inherent Vice, all those expectations must be jettisoned in order for you to enjoy something, in order for you to really enjoy the film. And there's some virtue in that, right? There's something to be said about a movie that's unlike any other that you've seen. But it's also like it's also something that I can understand is an acquired taste for some people.
Yeah.
It's not a movie that despite people, including yourself, Devindra, insisting that I go see it again, I don't know if this is a movie that I'm going to see again, just because I don't know that I enjoyed it that much.
What I'm saying is, if you see it again, you will see a very different movie. That's basically the argument I'm laying out here.
It's very likely. But it's not necessarily a movie that I feel compelled to revisit, just because it doesn't work on these other levels that I typically like movies to work on.
Yeah,
I have to say too that I have pretty avant-garde tastes. I think that's been made clear over the times I've been on the show. But I just
okay,
this one was beyond me.
What are your avant-garde bona fides, Jeff? What are some of those?
Well, my favorite movie of all time. You know my favorite movie of all time, right?
Name it for us.
My Dinner with Andre. I mean, I think that's a movie that puts off many people. I think it's a movie that people find very difficult to like. And I'm very much open to experimental film. I'm very open to the kinds. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson himself, his movies I put at the absolute top of my list of art that I am drawn to. This one, for whatever reason, it just failed to captivate me in any significant way. I could appreciate it's not that I didn't understand what he was attempting. I get it. I understand and I understand why it works for you guys, and I'm glad it does. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. Yeah,
I think, Jeff, I think that's okay. I mean, like, honestly, like, I'm upset that I'm not, like, offended, but I understand why you didn't like it. I wish you did like it. But at the same time, like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. That doesn't mean necessarily that every Star Wars movie is going to work for me. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be things that just don't click. So I wouldn't say us describing as avant-garde and you liking avant-garde films means anything's wrong. But I mean, you know what I mean? I understand what you're saying. It is a weird movie. And I think, there's going to be people who like it for reasons that we're not even saying, which is so weird. Like, it's so all over the place that you can find so many things to like about it, but also find a lot of things to not like about it.
I mean, this movie reminded me a lot, actually, of What was the Ridley Scott movie?
Robin Hood?
The Counselor?
No, The Counselor. It reminds me a lot of The Counselor, yes, which you love, Jeff.
That.
You loved.
Terrible.
I hated.
I know.
And it's funny how, like, it's
And
just
the
funny.
tables
like,
have turned.
Yeah. Well, it's also like they're both
Well, I didn't
movies
hate
where
this.
plot isn't necessarily the most important thing, and it's really about the atmosphere and everything. But whereas, what really turned me off with The Counselor, I think, was the fact that everyone was like so relentlessly cynical and brutal about the world. And this movie is strangely hopeful, right? Because these are people who are seeing their culture taken away from them. They're seeing their entire neighborhoods disappearing, as developers come in and try to modernize things. And there's still a hopefulness to it, and there's still a humanity to it that I didn't quite see in The Counselor, honestly.
I think that's I love that you brought that up, Devindra. Thank you for that, because I'd forgotten. I think that's a really wonderful comparison, and it makes me perhaps zero in a little bit more on what wasn't present in this film for me, and that is something that I think
Cameron Diaz's. Okay, sorry.
That scene. Well, no, actually,
no one fucked
we have
a car in
something
this
better. We have something better in this movie, I would say. But yeah,
That's true. That's good.
Yes, there's a lot of gratuitous lady parts in this movie as well. But I think what it is I didn't grasp hold of a transcendent truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, so much of what Paul Thomas Anderson in particular is able to convey in his movies is this truth that resonates with me. And all art, is for me, I think, is defined as being able to find some sort of articulation of the truth that resonates with me, right?
Yeah.
And I just didn't find that, and maybe it's because like I don't relate to that character. I don't relate to those situations in a way. So maybe there is a truth there that just doesn't resonate with me in particular. And I get what he's attempting here and trying to find that place of really what Pynchon was doing, which is this outcry of a loss of something, of a daring American spirit that was sort of being gobbled up at that time. Something that existed in the 60s and was sort of dying in the 70s, and I think has fully died by the time we get to our era, right? But and so I can respect that, and from afar I look at that and I go, oh man, I respect the filmmaker who's attempting to sort of find that and illuminate that, but it just never worked for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's weird how, for me, like we reviewed The Master, when that came out a couple years ago, and I appreciate that movie. I think it's a really interesting drama. But for me, The Master always felt like, and I've read this too, like as they were putting the movie together, where that movie was, I think more than many other films, was really took shape in the editing room because he didn't quite know how the pieces were going to fit together. And while watching it, that movie always felt like a puzzle that was really like a jigsaw puzzle that maybe the pieces aren't quite there, and it feels like they had to like force some of the corners, to really make this picture whole. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the drama in it, but I never quite connected to it. Whereas this one is more like, this is like finger painting, right? And I am almost fully on board with like how it's moving. Like, at least I care about the characters, even though like the connection between everything isn't quite as strong as it was in The Master or something.
I feel like The Master is like where as this you're trying to piece together the narrative a little bit. The characters are very well defined. The Master is almost the opposite, where the characters are very ambiguous and hard to define, where the narrative is a little more specific.
Sure.
I don't know. That was just a thought that popped into my head when you brought up The Master.
Reviewers have been largely positive on Inherent Vice, but it has been a little bit polarizing. Our friend of the show, Matt Patches, wrote a review of the film for IGN, where he actually described it as follows, quote, "Leading experts agree that there are 3 stages of the marijuana high. First comes the light buzz, then the high settles in, a sensory apex, and finally there's the mellow descent, settled and stoned. Writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson mimics that euphoric experience in a 3-act structure in Inherent Vice." And I like, end quote. I like the way he put that. Just describing the structure of the film and how it unfolds as a mimicking of how people get high. Then you have people like Kyle Smith at New York Post saying, that Inherent Vice, meandering even by Anderson's standards, is easily the worst of his movies. A soporific 2.5-hour endurance fest.
Soporific is a great word.
Endurance test. And you know what? Honestly, I think both writers have a point. So overall, I liked the movie, but I also, it's definitely not a movie that I would have saw myself. Like, I would not have. The only reason I would have sought this out is out of my love and devotion.
I basically put a gun to you guys' heads. Well, I know that you already saw it, but I put a gun to your head.
You insisted that we not. So here was a trade that we made. We would review Inherent Vice today if it meant we could review 50 Shades of Grey later on in the month.
Because Dave really wants to
guess which side Dave was on in that one.
So I think we all know who won this battle.
I hear
guys.
Jeff's high school teacher really likes 50 Shades.
I think we all know who came out on the positive side
It
of this.
wasn't the listeners, that's for sure.
That'll be a fun episode, honestly.
Yeah. We just learned today that 20 minutes of that film is sex scenes. So
all right,
looking forward to that. All right.
What else do they do?
All right.
They talk. They do other things.
Do we want to talk about spoilers?
I feel like, that's totally worth it. But before we get there, I just want to mention something real quick. Dave, you were talking about how this movie kind of broke rules, right? It felt like there are these conventions that we have narratively or that we're used to seeing in movies that, it's weird when a movie breaks them. And this movie does it all the time. And I think one of the things that endears me so much to it is the way it can break those rules and just say, fuck it. And just kind of like run with it and kind of make them work. Like the entire movie is like narrated by Joanna Newsom, who plays Sortilage in the film. And in the book, she's just kind of like a random character in the background. She may or may not be psychic. Whereas in the movie, she's portrayed as this sort of like this seer who can really see everything that's going on. And honestly, I was shocked at how well that worked because Pynchon's stuff is so dense, right? He doesn't just write normal dialogue. He writes tomes about what people are thinking and how they're feeling. And I was impressed that the movie was able to get that into the actual, film through this narration. And, I'll say, like, my inner monologue now is pretty much all Joanna Newsom. Like, that is how I think now.
It's fascinating how different our reactions are to this film because I felt nothing at that.
But that's true of most of your life.
That's true. I live in a sort of this walking haze.
Unless it's the Super Bowl, and then he feels so.
Yeah,
this is just Dave admitting that he's always high.
That's what this whole episode's been building.
He's like the Hulk.
That's the whole series.
Yeah, the Hulk in the Avengers. Basically, this is Dave. He's actually always high.
All right, let's move on into spoilers for Inherent Vice, starting right now.
Now you're looking for the secret.
You're going to see this coming.
No. But you won't find it because, of course,
you're not going to see this coming.
You're not really looking.
I have been puzzling over how it works.
You don't really want to work it out.
Who's in the box? I have been dying to tell you.
I want to tell you my secret.
You want to be fooled.
So, Devindra, any thoughts on how this movie ended?
I mean, I guess there's a certain point of things where I feel like in the third act, right, things just start to wrap up. And I found it interesting how so much of it was through no effort at all on Doc's side, right? Like he found the real estate guy that he was looking for, but it turns out there wasn't really much he could do there. And his girlfriend just kind of comes back. And to me, that was one of the really interesting through points in the film too. Like Shasta Fay defines herself as inherent vice when she was on the boat, right? Something that you kind of know will break or something that'll go wrong. And seeing their relationship come back together and seeing how messed up that crazy scene where she's just naked and she lays on his lap and it's all in one shot. And clearly this is not a healthy relationship. And it made me feel really
Speak
sad.
For yourself.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know, I get it.
Seemed like they were having a lot of fun, I guess. I don't know. But clearly, like, this is something that Doc, it was kind of the impetus for the entire film. And now she's back. He sort of has her, even though he knows he can't quite keep her. And there's this realization that this girl is just so bad for him, but he has to do it anyway. Like, that's just, they have to be together. So I found that just kind of heartbreaking. That's also the final shot of the movie is them in the car and him looking off in the distance. And it's kind of like the music is swelling dramatically. And then, something from the soundtrack also pops up and he kind of looks off in the distance and he smiles and she looks at him and she's confused as to what's happening. And I love that. I love movies that just end on enigmatic shots like that that you can read so much into. So I love that. And the wrap up of the whole what's his face? The plot line of the missing singer who they thought was dead. I love that was his impetus, right? The real plot that he could really make a difference for in the film was putting this family back together. And, he can't control much in his life, right? He can't control if Shasta Fe will leave him around. He can't really control what Bigfoot will do or how he'll fuck up his life, but he can at least bring this family back together. And I love that was the motivation towards the end when he was really confused about what to do. And also a great tiny little shootout sequence in this movie. Like it felt like something from Coen Brothers, honestly, something from Miller's Crossing. So great stuff. I love the way the movie wrapped up, basically.
Yeah. And any thoughts on that, Jermaine? Anything you want to highlight about this film?
I mean, I referenced it in the non-spoilers, but the stuff in like the sex shop is so out of left field and hilarious and great. Like the girl, I should have brought up her name. The actress who plays that role, she pops up a bunch of times. She's so good and so funny every time and so random. Yeah, Hong Chow, so great. That stood out to me as something that I just couldn't stop thinking of, and his relationship with Josh Brolin. Is so weird too.
Can we talk about Josh Brolin in this movie because he is just like fully on board for the insanity? Right? We were talking about the cops being the kind of straight-laced ones, but not quite either, because Bigfoot is a guy who wants to be an actor. He still wants to be a star, and I love that dichotomy, right? Maybe it's like an LA type story, right? Everybody secretly wants to be an actor, I guess. But him, the way he portrays that role, the like various sort of like sexual innuendos with everything he's eating, I thought hilarious. And the way he played it straight too, like that one car scene, and you could see Doc just looking at him while he like sucks at that frozen banana. And that was, that's something really interesting.
I think that's part of the movie. The reason I like the movie is not only does Brolin jump in, everybody jumps in to the deep end on this movie. I mean, think about like Martin Short, like his role. He's just all coked out, running around in this doctor's office, and I don't even know why Doc is there. Like, who cares? He's just like, oh, hey, what's up? And there's some girls walking in like half naked.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah.
No, I'm sure it makes sense if you really broke it down, but at the same time, it's just everybody, and like even to the like I mentioned in my review, like. The people who did the hair for like the chops on Joaquin Phoenix, you can't take your eyes off those things when you're in a thing like when he's in close up. It's just everything. Everybody's so into this vision of weird, tripped out 70s California. Like,
there's a whole new meaning to the term acting chops.
Yes, boo. Boo.
Hey, I'm back, everybody.
Oh man,
I like his Wolverine tryout. Yeah, that's great.
I would say my biggest indictment of the movie for me, and clearly it's not, nobody shares this, but I'll say it anyway, is that I didn't find myself thinking about it later. Ooh, I didn't, that's the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie that I can say that about. I wrestle with his movies. They stay with me. I think of them. And this, it's been a few weeks now since I've seen it, and when, it was time for us to record this episode, I sort of had to reboot and go, okay, yeah, let's revisit this movie in my head, because it hasn't stayed with me. It hasn't stayed there in my consciousness.
Right. And I feel the same way, Jeff. I mean, it's not a movie that I based on what I knew about it, it's not a movie I would have sought out. And
but it does seem like you were reluctant to see it at first, Dave.
Oh, me? Yeah. I definitely was reluctant to see it at first.
I'm wondering why.
I guess because of all the things I'd heard about it. I mean, just because, and let me be clear. It's weird too, because I am diehard P.T. Anderson fan.
I remember in college I couldn't shut you up about him. Yeah.
I remember Magnolia, the New Line Platinum Series DVD of Magnolia. It was like when DVDs were just starting to be released.
Right.
And they were loading them up with tons of special features. And I watched every single special feature on that DVD. I watched the and that movie is long, man. That was 3 hours movie. That 3 hour long movie. You know, I watched the movie. I watched the movie multiple times. I watched the commentary. You know, I bought the shooting script for Magnolia and read through the whole thing so I could see what was like. There were a bunch of scenes, deleted scenes that they didn't even finish shooting them that like make the ending of the film make more sense. I bought the New Line Platinum edition of Boogie Nights and watched every single special feature on that DVD. You know, I'm a diehard P.T. Anderson fan, but I just heard that this movie is just meandering, and over time we've talked about this as movies have become less and less accessible, and so it just is not a movie that was of particular interest to me. It felt more like Punch Drunk Love than it did like which is one of my lesser.
I love that
favorite.
movie.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's not a movie of his that I'm as much of a fan of as I am of the I guess the more mainstream ones. Like
I don't know if they're even mainstream. Yeah, Magnolia's not clearly a mainstream movie, dude.
I want to point out a few things that resonated with me from what you guys said.
Wait, you can do that in 1 second. You have to point out a mistake. I don't believe there's a commentary track on the Magnolia DVD. There definitely is on the Boogie Nights DVD.
Apologies.
But there is a fantastic documentary on the Magnolia DVD.
Yeah, there is a video production diary.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I do remember.
He's too drugged up to even remember at this point.
I know, he's so high right now in Seattle where weed is legal and the Seahawks lost.
I just have a contact high right now from the atmosphere here. I remember that video production diary. There's a scene in it where he's still with Fiona Apple at that point, I believe, and talking about how people. How it was really frustrating him how like people didn't like Magnolia as much because it wasn't the same as Boogie Nights. And I guess I'm now falling into that trap by saying I don't like Inherent Vice as much because it wasn't as much like his other films. But I mean that's just how I feel. Now a few things that you point out that I want to just highlight. Number one, you're talking about the ending and how Shasta returns, and how like the whole hunt was basically for nothing. That actually solidifies the Big Lebowski comparison even more.
Yes,
from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I guess you know, Jeff, the indictment I have of this movie, is that I remember really amusing moments from it. Well, also Hong Chow, by the way, probably my favorite part of the film. But I remember amusing parts from it, like Martin Short going out on this coked out binge and Hong Chow, doing this crazy stuff. And all these, Joaquin Phoenix looking at the photo and reacting weirdly to it. Right. I remember all these like amazing moments that are hilarious and unforgettable. But then the stuff that is supposed to make an emotional impact, I feel like it doesn't, Right. And like the whole Shasta Fe and their whole relationship, like Devindra, what you described, it's awesome to me that you have that interpretation, but it's not something that I felt while watching the film.
That scene of them like running through the rainstorm to like find the mysterious dope during the shortage, like that. I don't know. I think that sort of thing solidified that relationship.
I also think by the end of the movie, you're either. I think within about 50 minutes, you're in it or not.
Yes,
and,
right.
So Devindra's probably thinking about the movie at a different level. At that point, David's probably like,
he's on
wrap
such a
this
high,
shit up.
He's on a higher plane of existence than me, Devindra.
Higher, indeed.
I also want to say that last shot, it actually did remind me of the last shot in Magnolia, because it almost seems like Joaquin Phoenix is looking directly into the camera. I don't know if that was intentional or
it's like light is coming from the camera and shines in his eyes.
Well, I think that was a reflection of the rear view. But yeah, it did have this like nice enigmatic moment to it. But again, that's kind of all I remember from the film is these moments, and not a sort of overarching, connective tissue for them. So
I mean, I totally agree with you. It's just for me, like I just rewatching it, I was surprised at how much I loved all of those moments, even though they didn't quite connect in the way they typically would in a film. It's almost like Boyhood in that way, right? It's sort of like hazy memory, where you may or may not remember something. But the movie still is an enjoyable sit for me.
All right. And on that note, I think we can wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. You can find the music for our podcast at adamwarrock.com. He does our theme song. Find more episodes at /filmcast.com email us at /filmcast@gmail.com. Stay tuned to hear what we'll be reviewing next week. In the meantime, Jermaine Lucier, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week?
You can find my work at /film.com, and I'm on at Twitter and Instagram at Jermaine Lucier.
Devindra Hardwar.
You can find me on twitter.com/Devindra, and you can find me token up at Engadget.com.
Jeff Canada.
A bunch of druggies over there at Engadget. That's the one thing I know. I'm at Jeff Canada. That's with 2 N's and 1 T. I have a comedy show about strange news stories, technology, science, sociology, philosophy. It's called We Have Concerns. It's at wehaveconcerns.com. Check that out. Also, hear me talk about video games over at 5by5.tv/DLC.
Find me at davechen.net and find my music at youtube.com/davechenmusic. Next week, we'll be reviewing Jupiter Ascending, a film that, I don't know. What do you think it's going to be good, Jermaine?
I hope it's good.
I've heard it's really good from some people and it's really bad from some other people.
All right.
So I'm hoping I'm in the former.
I love hearing that, actually.
All right. Well, that'll be an interesting review then. So thank you for listening to the official podcast of /film.com. We'll see you later.